Let's move on to something else that you're working on here. You introduced legislation that would ban surveillance pricing. There's a great write-up about it in the American Prospect that I'd encourage people to read. Of course, David Dayen's always on it. But if you don't mind explaining what this legislation is designed to do and what the problem is that you're identifying here.
Yeah, whether you know it or not, you could be getting your prices jacked up or your wages pressed down by companies that spy on you, take that data and run it through AI in order to basically jack you around. What my bill does is it bans the practice of corporations doing this. Think about it like this. I think that it should be illegal that an airline knows that you Googled a family obituary and then individually for you pushes up your ticket prices because they know that you're desperate to get to a funeral. Or on the wage side, I think that we should ban the practice of a ride sharing app, for example, knowing that you recently visited a pawn shop because they know your location and they know you've hit hard times. And so then they start offering you a lower wage on DoorDash or a lower wage for a ride sharing app because they know you've hit desperate times. These companies should actually have to compete on improving their products, not compete on using AI to squeeze every last penny out of you.
I mean, that's an incredible story that Uber, I guess, has been accused of this in particular, reducing driver wages in real time based on their movements that would indicate desperation. I mean, this is like extremely dystopian stuff here.
Well, some of what we've heard about is that some of these models could also be tracking your battery life, right? Think about it. If they know how much battery you've got in your phone, of course, that is trackable data, then they could offer you a more expensive ride because they know your phone is about to die. Right. I mean, this stuff is terrifying. And part of the problem is we don't know how much of this data is being used for this. We've got to bring these practices fully into the light. Delta Airlines, for example, just announced that they are going to start increasing surveillance or at least artificial intelligence pricing. They currently price 3% of their tickets using AI. They just said now that they want to price 20% of their tickets using artificial intelligence. That might mean that competitors who may not even want to do this, let's just give people the benefit of the doubt for a second. Let's say somebody didn't want to do this. There could be the competitive pressure for them to do it as well. You know, we want airlines, we want our products to improve, and that's why we would pay more, not for them to figure out how desperate you are and then just squeeze every last penny out of you.
I mean, how does this not violate price discrimination laws? This is textbook price discrimination, but just because they're using a fancy computer doesn't mean that they're not discriminating.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to update our laws, right? As you know, the kind of common sense one is a gas station should not be able to jack up your gas prices because a hurricane is coming. But with the rapid development of artificial intelligence, this is an area that has gone largely unregulated. And we know that when we try to apply our laws from 100 years ago, oftentimes these big lobbies go and beat us up in the courts and oftentimes win. And so it's really time for us to make very clear that this practice is illegal and banned. Look, artificial intelligence is going to keep on growing, but I want the government to set up guardrails so that that AI is being used to, say, detect early onset of lung cancer. I don't want that AI to be going and detecting, how low my battery is and that they could charge me more, or what I Googled so they can charge me more, or that I'm under hard times and they can pay you less. And basically, if you want to hear the industry defense here, Emma, and say that this is okay, they say that this is the industry term, they say that they are just using our private data to find out our, quote, willingness to pay. And that, and they say, well, if your willingness to pay is a little bit less, maybe we can charge you a little bit less. That's good for you. I mean, give me a break. Willingness to pay is just how much is the most we can charge you or the least we can pay you. And I don't want companies competing, spying on us. We want companies to actually have to provide a better product and pay people what they're worth.
Yeah, I saw that some members of Congress signed on to this letter, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, yourself, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, et cetera, on enforcing the Robinson-Patman Act of, I guess it was the 1930s. Can you talk a little bit about your signage onto that letter and how that connects with this legislation you've introduced, if at all?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are the set of laws that we created in the 1930s and in the 1940s, from Robinson-Patman to packers and stockyards, the ways that we recognized coming out of the Great Depression, that massive consolidation of the economy, price gouging, and essentially the Elon Musks of their day trying to buy the government helped cause the Great Depression. We've got to learn from that today in the modern day. And today in the modern day, we've got to be dealing with the fact that we don't want artificial intelligence jacking up our prices and getting rid of our jobs. We've got to be really careful with how cryptocurrency seems to be getting more and more deregulated or lightly regulated. We need to have learned our lessons from the 1920s about speculators and deregulation. So I think a modern progressive movement, and I hope a thoughtful, forward-thinking Democratic Party, should present to voters that we see the problems that are coming in this century and that we could be inspired by sort of the OG progressives and populists of the 1920s and 1930s. We could try to enforce those laws, and we should. But dang, I think we also need the 2020s version and the 2030s version of solving these problems. A lot of them rhyme, like with the problems we had 100 years ago. Oligarchy today rhymes quite a bit with oligarchy from 100 years ago. But we also, need to recognize that they're using new tools, and we need to propose new laws to deal with those very real problems. And people know it. I mean, you open up an app, it's immediately already asking you to accept terms and conditions for 50 different things. My legislation kind of answers the question for you of what are they wanting all this data for?
Right. Wow. This is educational as well as like something where people should call their representatives and say, hey, support this legislation. I mean, this is the kind of thing that if we want to say we have a functioning Congress that should be being passed to protect people from these kinds of practices. Lastly, Congressman, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you a bit about, because we're here in New York, and Zohran Mamdani's victory has been just this like enormously exciting moment for the city, and the leader of the Democrats in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, has not endorsed Zohran Mamdani. Okay, what's your reaction to that, and what has the reaction in Washington been within at least the reaction of the Congressional Progressive Caucus to his victory, and what that signals about this kind of politics within the Democratic Party?
Look, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez recently had a big meeting for folks on the Hill with Mr. Mamdani. It was a great meeting. I've gotten a chance to speak with him before his win. And afterwards, it's impressive. It's, I think, a powerful message that he's been focused on every single day about loving the city of New York and making it affordable for everyday people and being relentless on that message to have achievable progressive goals that appeal to everybody, like buses being fast and free. I know that he had a meeting with Leader Jeffries recently. I haven't got an update on how that meeting went, but I'm encouraging everyone in Congress and across the Democratic family to endorse and support him. Because look, I agree that we do need a bigger tent that includes more voters and more voices inside of the party. And creating a bigger tent also includes the very progressive and further left parts of the party, along with voters that might be more moderate than Mr. Mamdani on a variety of issues. We need to build that big coalition. But oftentimes when we hear some of the more, in my view, some of the more cynical voices saying we need a big tent, they're talking about adding like big bank CEOs to the tent, but they don't want Mamdani, who inspired millions of people in the tent. Look, our tent should include the broad variety of voters, and that includes leaders like Representative Mamdani and the huge number of volunteers and activists he inspired. So, like, when we talk about building a big tent, which I do think progressives need to be committed to doing, that doesn't mean kicking progressive voters out of the tent. It does mean adding people on both ends of the spectrum. Now, does the tent include lobbyists that want to preserve the carried interest loophole? No. I mean, that's not real voters, guys. But unfortunately, I think some of those big money interests are oftentimes trying to drive negative coverage against Mr. Mamdani. And I think that would be to the Democrats' detriment to not include what Zoran is doing into our work.
And well said. My last real just follow-up about it is it's not just, to me, you mentioned that it's the message that breaks through. I think there's a lot of focus on, like, how can the social media team be as good as his and things like that, where I'm hoping that the Democrats are understanding that it's the policies that are driving the enthusiasm. And I know the Congressional Progressive Caucus understands that. But, like, when we're talking about the bigger tent thing, the tacking to the suburban Republicans and constantly appealing to them, it hasn't worked out. We have Donald Trump once again. So, like, this is more of a not as much of a question. It's more just like, can you see your colleagues embracing that? Because I think it's really key for our democracy that they do.
Yeah, increasingly, I think folks are. And I think that goes back to the actually including a lot more voters idea here. You don't have to go and have some watered down, means tested, corporate checked policy in order to bring in some of those, what some folks watching here might call like a normie voter. No, buses being fast and free, as Mr. Mamdani said, is something that everybody can understand and everybody can click with. Certainly, I mean, his videos and social media are amazing. But like you said, it's not just the marketing strategy, it's actually the policy product that inspired a lot of people, right? Like the freezing the rent in those buildings where he can and making buses fast and free is the kind of thing that can inspire millions of people. And what I'll tell you is in the meeting that Congressman Ocasio-Cortez hosted for Mr. Mamdani in Washington, D.C., you had more than just the usual suspects there, because I do think that if we want to defeat not just Trump, but Trumpism, we need ideas that are bold and universal and easy and simple to understand, right? Donald Trump was lying when he said he was going to go support the working class, but when he says things like no tax on tips, it is bold. It is a universal idea. Of course, he ended up not really doing that and screwing over service workers, but we should learn from the fact that you don't have to be, like you just said, a comms superstar to be able to reshape the Democratic Party and Democratic politics towards something that everybody can understand and see themselves in. And I think we should be learning that from Mr. Mamdani's campaign right now.
Well, really appreciate you taking the time today to come on the show. Representative Greg Casar, Texas's 35th Congressional District, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and call your members of Congress about this redistricting fight. It's immensely important. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Emma. Y'all take care.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.